Premiers and 3 territorial leaders will be wrapping up their summer summit later on today in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario. And one topic high on the agenda for many is emergency preparedness. Alberta's premier wants a national disaster mitigation strategy, of course, in the wake of flooding in her province. But will Ottawa be on board for something like this? It's going to be expensive. We know that. Joining us now, Paul Kovacs, founder and executive director of the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction. He's with us in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's interesting because we got this figure from Alberta's premier of $3 billion. That's the assessment as to the total damage from flooding there in the province. About a third of that is insurable losses, but then you're left with $2 billion that has to be paid for somehow to rebuild infrastructure, homes, all of that. If you were to engage in disaster mitigation or prevention, how much would that cost?
It's our research that shows that disaster losses have been rising across Canada for some time now. We're up to billions of dollars each year. Much of these losses are preventable, and one of the most powerful ways to do that is through a mitigation strategy. We found research from Canada and elsewhere around the world that shows that every dollar we spend will save at least $4. This is a 400% return on investment.
Yeah,
it's one of the best things we can do.
Right.
But
some might say, well, if those studies are already out there, why didn't we do this yesterday? Why are we still fighting for this national prevention strategy?
This discussion has been going on for a while. 15 years ago, I was the co-chair with Eric Shipley of the Government of Canada for hearings that were held across the country, and we had enormous enthusiasm for this idea that we should have this strategy. And more than 9 years ago, the federal and provincial governments all agreed this is a good thing. They have agreed goals and objectives. The problem for several years now is on implementation and on money. Who's going to pay and how much they're willing to pay.
Yeah.
So that remains a challenge.
Money or implementation? I would think that, for governments these days, everyone's cutting.
It's a bit of both, exactly how you do it. But if you can spend $1 and save $4, I mean, that's a very wise public investment. As a taxpayer, I support investing in the right ones. We have one example in Canada, in Winnipeg, where we spent $63.5 million, and so far we've avoided $8 billion worth of damage. These investments save money over a fairly short period of time. A lot of these losses are preventable through mitigation. Right.
So Alison Redford is saying, look, it's up to the federal government to put up the cash for something like this. Is she right? And do you think Ottawa will do that?
The current agreement we've had in place since 1970, called the Disaster Financial Assistance Agreement, says that when the provinces spend, Alberta's already committed to spend $1 billion. When the provinces spend money on under the agreed rules, Ottawa will compensate them for up to 90% of their cost. Ottawa are already very much involved in the business of paying for cleaning up. The idea of investing in preventing the need for cleaning up is very much in Ottawa's interest. They have been talking about it for a number of years, and we have a few examples in Winnipeg. But what we need is a really strong commitment across the country, because the risks are everywhere, to really move forward and have Ottawa step up and truly put some money on a consistent basis.
So you're optimistic. It's just a pity that it's taken this long, right?
The dialogue has been continuing, and I would love to see this go forward. I really think this is a good idea, and it will take place.
Okay, Paul Kovacs joining us. We appreciate this. Thank you.
My pleasure.